I think a couple things that I would add that are kind of general, right? Just across the board. And even when we go in and we do something like an audit of someone's content, before we even look at the outreach instance, I can already say to someone, hey, I bet these two things are going to be pieces of feedback that I have. And the first two things would be make it short. I know outreach recommends, like, if you can't read the whole thing on a phone screen before you scroll, like, it's too long, and I repeat that all the time. And another thing too is, like, if you can cut something without losing value, cut it. If an email is one sentence, two sentences, fine. But I always try to, like, when we're creating content, one of the things I train our team on is I say, okay, write the sequence and then just don't look at it for a couple days, and then go back to it and look at it again, because your brain will just see the extra pieces and you can just cut. And that's my favorite part of the writing process, is just throwing away the excess that shouldn't be there. And we've done large scale audits of enterprise organizations where we've actually found that their like the emails that didn't pass our brevity test got like half the amount of responses that we would have expected based on the other sequences in their instance. And we did a little bit of a calculation, and we're like, oh, you could actually increase your pipeline by millions if you just cut half the content in some of these sequences. And that I thought was a pretty interesting finding. So making your content as short as makes sense. We usually say like 3 paragraphs, kind of like Megan was saying, right? There's sort of a more personalized, or at least personalized, feel to the first paragraph. Then you sort of have a value proposition, and then you have a call to action. You shouldn't need more than that. So 3 paragraphs, and if you're in like an inbox or something, like 2 lines or 3 lines maximum, but I feel much more comfortable with 2 lines for the most part maximum. So we're talking really short emails. And then the other thing that's pretty common feedback that we give is, hey, this email is about you and not your customer, and it should be about the customer completely. So if you're starting the email and you're talking about features and benefits of the thing that you're selling, you're doing it wrong. You shouldn't. And in most cases, we don't even say the name of the company or the product. This is where it sort of depends on the stage. You know, we work with a lot of companies that are just hiring their first SDR team, and they're trying to get their name out there. And so that's kind of a different story. But, you know, everyone kind of knows where you're coming from because of your email signature and your email. And so a lot of times you don't need to say like, hey, I'm with outreach, you know, because it's obvious and people probably know outreach. So those are the 2 things that I think are good. The last thing I would say that I say often, especially internally, is using really simple language. Kind of explain it like you would explain it to your grandfather. Like, what is it that you do? Get as simple as possible. And on our team, one thing that we like to do in our creation process is, because we get to know different people's products and teams. And so we say, hey, I did this discovery with this team and I wrote this sequence. Do you understand it? Like, if you just got this cold in your inbox, would you be able to understand what they do enough to just spend 30 minutes learning more about it? And if I read something and I'm like, hey, I know this is some sort of like AI tech that's complicated, but I have no idea what it does after reading an email, like, we need to go back and we need to make it simple. Because even if you're talking to someone who knows a lot, you're sending a cold email. Like, if it takes more than a couple seconds for someone to figure out what in the world you're talking about, you've already lost them. And so you need like a very, very simple language in your emails too. And that's, if those 3 things are all hit, it's probably a good email.